All right, let's talk about something we all do as parents. We see our kids do something amazing and we think, wow, they're so smart, so advanced. But what if that label, the one we're so proud of, is actually setting them up for a future of anxiety and struggle? We're going to break down why calling your child advanced or gifted can be a lot more dangerous than you'd ever think.
So let me just ask you straight up, and I know this might sting a little. Is your gifted child actually heading for a crisis? It sounds super dramatic, I get it, but the research we're about to get into suggests this is a very real risk, one we really need to talk about. Look at this number, 90%. What if I told you that this number pretty much represents, well, almost all of our kids? It seems way too high to be true, but it's actually at the very heart of this huge misunderstanding in parenting today.
Yeah, that's right. 90% of children hit their developmental milestones ahead of the official schedule. So if your kid walked early or talked early or started reading early, guess what? They're not the exception. They're part of this huge, totally normal group. And honestly, this should be a massive relief. It frees all of us from the pressure of thinking our child has to be some kind of outlier.
So this brings us to our first big idea we need to dismantle, the advanced child myth. Let's dig into why what we've all been calling early is really just normal. You see, this completely reframes how we should be looking at milestones. They were never meant to be a race or a list of achievements to brag about. Think of them more like safety nets. When a doctor says a child should be walking by 18 months, what they really mean is that's the point where we might want to check in for extra support because, 90% of kids are already walking way before then.
And that leads to a really simple truth, right? Most kids are advanced in something. Maybe they're an early talker, but a cautious climber. Maybe they're amazing at puzzles, but took their time with potty training. It's all normal. The logic here is pretty straightforward. If almost everyone is hitting these marks early, then the word advanced, well, it kind of loses all its meaning.
Okay, but this isn't just about what words we use. Constantly labeling a child as gifted or so smart creates a very real psychological trap. And this is where we start to see the hidden dangers really come to light. So you can see the huge disconnect here, right? We as parents think we're boosting their confidence. My kid is a natural. But what the child hears is something totally different. They start to believe their intelligence is this thing they're born with, that it's fixed. So what happens when something doesn't come easily? Their brain goes, uh-oh, maybe I'm not so smart after all. And they learn to avoid difficult things because failing would threaten their whole identity as the smart one. And the long-term consequences of this are, well, they're serious. Study after study shows that adults who were labeled gifted as kids often report higher rates of anxiety, depression, burnout, and this crushing perfectionism. That pressure to always be the smartest person in the room becomes an incredible burden to carry. Data is one thing, but stories like this just hit you in the gut. This parent's experience it's a perfect example of the problem. Their daughter was so used to school being easy that the moment she faced a real challenge, something she had to actually struggle with, she didn't have the tools to cope. She saw it as a catastrophic personal failure, not just a normal part of learning something new. So if the labels are the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, it's about shifting our focus completely. Instead of praising an identity, we need to focus on helping our kids build the actual core skills that lead to real resilience and genuine confidence. The first and maybe the most critical skill is self-regulation. And I absolutely love this analogy of an emotional thermostat. It's not about controlling a kid's behavior, it's about helping them learn to manage their inner world. When they have a huge meltdown, they're not being bad. Their internal thermostat is just busted. They're overwhelmed, and they need our calm help to find their balance again. So, how do you know if your child needs a little help in this area? Well, these signs are pretty big clues. And just notice how many of these things we usually label as bad behavior or defiance. When you start seeing them as signs of a struggling thermostat instead, your entire approach can shift from punishment to support. It's a game changer. All right, so how do we actually do this? How do we build these skills? This next part is all about practical, everyday things you can start doing right away to build real, lasting resilience in your kid. This one right here is probably the single biggest, most impactful change you can make. It's all about praising the process, not the person. So instead of, you're so smart, which is a fixed label, try something like, wow, I saw how hard you worked on that. You're praising their effort, their persistence, the strategies they used, all things they actually have control over. And it's the same idea when your child is struggling with something. Resist that urge to say, hey, you're smart, you'll figure it out. That just sends a message that smart people shouldn't get sad or frustrated. Instead, just validate the feeling. Simply saying, I can see you're really frustrated right now, teaches them that their emotions are normal and okay to have. Now let's talk about boundaries. I know we sometimes worry that setting limits is going to stifle our kids' creativity or freedom, but it's actually the exact opposite. Clear, consistent boundaries are like guardrails on a winding mountain road. They don't block the beautiful view, they create the safety that allows a child to explore the world with confidence because they know you've got them covered. And here's a tool that is so powerful, but so often overlooked in our busy, scheduled world: independent play. Seriously, when a child is just playing by themselves with no screens and no adult telling them what to do, they are building some of the most critical life skills imaginable. They're learning to solve their own problems, rely on their own imagination, and push through boredom. That's where true self-reliance is born. Okay, I know this can feel like a lot to take in at once, so let's just break it all down into a super simple, totally manageable action plan. We're talking small changes that will have a huge impact over time. Here it is. This week, just focus on your words, try to catch yourself before you say you're so smart, and make a point to validate just one feeling you see in your child each day. Then, this month, pick one boundary, like bedtime or screen time, and just focus on holding it calmly and consistently. And over the next few months, make it a habit to name feelings out loud for both you and your child. See, it's all about small, sustainable steps. Look, if you only take one single thing away from all of this, please let it be this: your child does not need to be exceptional to be wonderful. Their worth is not tied to their report card or where they fall on some developmental chart. They are already, right now, completely wonderful. And what this all means is that we need to shift our parenting goals. Our job isn't to raise the smartest kid in the room, it's to raise a resilient one. It's not about chasing perfect grades, it's about fostering a genuine love of growth, effort, and learning. And that really leaves us with one final, pretty deep question to think about. In all our hopes and dreams for our kids, are we focused on raising a high achiever, or are we focused on raising a happy, capable, and resilient human being? The answer to that question really does change everything.